It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
It is a football Friday here on Sports by the Book. Happy to be with you. I'm Jeff Parles. Alongside me,
I'll take every phone call.
Chris Andrews will be back in a moment. Vinny Magliulo's here, though.
That's right.
There we go.
That's right. You know why? You know what? This is very important. Because airtime is post time for the Breeders' Cup. Race 5, Santa Anita, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, ladies and gentlemen. That's right.
Who are we rooting?
Footballs and furlongs right here at the South Point.
Who are we rooting for in this race?
Chrissy?
I got the 7.
Rooting for the 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
18-1.
Okay. Rooting for the 7. Again, pari-mutuel, guys. Pari-mutuel.
Yeah, that's right. We can root for winners. Pari-mutuel. And this is as much French as I know. Betting amongst ourselves.
Oh.
Is that what it stands for?
That's right. No, but that's what it translates.
That's what it has.
Yeah, that's what it stands for.
There we go.
Very good, Jeff.
Yeah, I knew you would.
Sound like me when I was taking Latin to be an altar
No,
boy.
I knew you would enjoy that, right? All right, let's get into it. By the way, a whole slate of Breeders' Cup races tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a way to bet that, go to our YouTube page that you're watching us right now. Frank Sirocco and company with a preview show that aired
especially
yesterday.
with today's stuff.
Yep.
And then tonight we have a seminar.
Yep.
And by the way, we have the ballroom open
upstairs
today and tomorrow. The I would say the best party in Las Vegas. It's the best party other than being at Santa Anita itself.
Good stuff.
Always a good time upstairs, regardless of the event at the ballroom. I'm always up there for the NCAA
Great
tournament.
food prices, everything.
It's really always, regardless of whatever event's up there, Breeders' Cup upstairs.
Betting stations, kiosks, TVs everywhere. It's
And as you said, affordable and good food.
It is. That's
free entry.
That's what we do here at the
Free
South
entry,
Point.
free parking.
Free entry, free parking.
Gotta love it. That
You
race
got to pick your own winners, though, Jeff. We can't help you there.
you definitely can't ask me because I would have just given you the longest shot on the board in this race.
Well,
and probably
it's the
finished
Breeders'
last.
Cup, and it might.
You
alive.
cannot eliminate a horse in these fields because I mean the worst horses are worth $1 million.
Right. Well, there we go. So they're underway. See if the 7 gets home for our guy Chris here.
Okay.
If you had the 14, you're off to a bad start, though. That's all I'll tell you on that one. All right. College football Friday, guys. Let's dive into it. Actually, you know what? I have to do this first. Chris, your Steelers, it doesn't matter that they continually get outgained. It doesn't matter that it looks ugly for 3 quarters. They just find a way. They win last night. They cover. Game goes under by the hook. And the Steelers are 5-3.
May I remind you, Jeff, it's not a beauty contest. It's a football game.
Oh, trust me. I know that for sure with the team that Vinny and I watch on a rooting basis.
Oof. Yeah, and they've been winning ugly, but they got 5 wins. It's hard to believe they have 5 wins.
I can tell you this.
Even down at the end, I'm thinking, are they going to give up a last-second touchdown? And then, of course, Steelers intercept in the end zone. So,
Look, as long as there's a second half, as long as there's a halftime with Mike Tomlin involved, the Steelers are alive.
Yeah.
Someone said this on Twitter last night, and I forget who it was. I'll have to look back and give credit as we go through this show. Mike Tomlin may not be the best coach. He's a darn good one. He's a Hall of Famer. But there's never been anyone with a higher floor for a season, year in and year out, than Mike Tomlin.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh, you're getting 500. You're getting 8 or 9 at worst. Happens every single year. And here we are again. The first team since you like this one. And Vinny, I don't even think you were alive for this one.
Thank you.
The Cleveland Rams in 1949 are the last team
Thank you,
to
Jeff.
get outgained in their first 8 games and still be over 500.
Yeah. Actually, I don't remember the Cleveland Rams. I remember my dad talking about the Cleveland Rams. But I want to say the problem really, and there's a great article from Dejan Kovacevic, who has DK on Pittsburgh Sports. He talks about the flaw, and a lot of it does, unfortunately, go to Tomlin, who has a lot of control in the draft room. They have drafted really poorly first and second round. They've picked up some great guys later, but they have blown most of their first and second round picks. Many of them not even still on the team, and the ones that are just kind of hanging on by a thread. So that's where Tomlin's flaw, and we see it now with Parcells. We saw it with Bill O'Brien. You know, the personnel guy is ruining the coach's job.
Oh, he definitely saw it with Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, definitely Bill O'Brien. And in the last couple of years with Belichick, and I would say the same with Tomlin. Like I said, they've done a few good late round. Stopping that, who's been their best first round draft choice? You know who it is the last couple of years? One they didn't make when they traded their number one choice for Minka Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
It was a great safety.
It was a great. He didn't play last night. Didn't matter.
No.
In that one. In the college games last night, by the way, Vinny, we didn't have to put Alex's 12.5 ticket on Wake Forest in the closing line value Hall of Fame. All numbers on Wake got there last night.
Yeah.
Texas Tech winning and covering last night as well in the other big game.
She had the first half. She had the Titans in the first half, right?
The two of us swept the board last night on the NFL
It's a miracle we're open. Honest to God.
Oh.
That's what. By the way, that big limousine out front, that's it. The guy was holding up the sign, Parles. That was beautiful. Well done.
Actually, it's French. It's parlay, right? On that. All right.
Gotcha that.
See,
previous life.
Yeah. See, time is a flat circle.
More
guys.
French.
All right, let's go to the night in college football. Boston College at Syracuse, a pretty ugly ACC game. Vinny, as you and I have said, the schedule brought Syracuse back to reality in a big way.
Oh, boy.
Great start. As bad of a middle to the season as you could have possibly drawn up for the Orange, who are now 4-4 after that 4-0 start. Mm-hmm. They get the Eagles tonight, who amazingly enough, Boston College with a win tonight will be bowl eligible. 2.5 right now, the number on this one. Cuse, the favorite at home.
And they're both fighting for bowl. You mentioned it, Boston College in, but Syracuse now, right? They were undefeated. You brought up the part about the reality of the schedule coming into play here. And their life and death. Jeff, this is what we've seen it quite a bit, especially with the number 3. Taking 3 and laying 2.5. I mean, so two-way action. But again, we don't need Syracuse to fall 3 right here, Chrissy.
First bet, they laid me the 2.5 and went to 3. They took it with a vengeance, really. And I went down to 2 with the game. I moved it a whole point. But they laid me back to 2, so I'm at 2.5 right now. Pretty even action on both games, but again, depending if you're looking to play the game, make sure you get a good number. I don't see any 3s out there right now.
Yep.
But I do see 2.5 with some juice. So you may see 3 later on. I'd say, be patient. If you don't find it, you don't have to bet. But
if you really like Boston College and you really want to bet it tonight, I would just say take it outright. I know you missed the best of the price on that as well, but
listen, sometimes you can kind of balance both. It depends on where you're looking to buy the 3. If you could buy a 3 in a college game for maybe like a quarter, might be worth buying the 3 and then put the other half your bet buying the 3 and half your bet on the money line. You kind of break up the risk a little bit.
Jeff, we've talked about 3. If you like a side plus the 3, plus 2.5, you think they can win the game. So maybe you sprinkle a little, maybe 25%, a third, whatever, depending on what your bet is. So if you like them with the points, you like them with the possibility of winning the game.
That's what I did tonight.
Okay.
I took the 3 last night before it disappeared, took a little money line on Boston College.
Well done.
I just think that the Syracuse team, and boy, it has been these last 4 games, 17-point loss to Clemson. Only scoring 7 points against North Carolina, which might actually be their most impressive feat in this 4-game losing streak. Blasted by Florida State. All right, so be it. Florida State's a great team. And then 38-10 last week at the Hokies, where we'll get to the Hokies a little bit later, who amazingly enough have a chance to control their own destiny to an ACC title.
They have turned some things around there.
Yeah.
And there were 3 teams that were kind of left for dead after the first month: Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State. Right now,
all look pretty good right now.
I will tell you right now, they're making folks money if you're backing them.
Let's go to the other game tonight: Wyoming, Colorado State. I will say this right away: the only bet that I made in this game does not exist anymore. I took over 41. That is now gone because this has been bet like people know this game's going over the total, Chris, because it's gone back up.
Yeah.
Amazingly enough, to 42.5. The rest of the market is 43. And Wyoming, a 6-point favorite tonight in Laramie against I don't want to say a good Colorado State team, but a pesky one at that.
They're very game. Let's say that. So I opened the game 7. I'm sorry. What did I? I did. Yeah. I opened the game 7. They took the 7. They took the 6.5. I'm down to 6 with the game. I don't know. I kind of like Wyoming in this spot. I don't know. You're on the total. If you like the favorite, you probably got to like at least lean a little bit to the over. I mean, it's gives you a little more leeway. But I don't mind being in this spot. I'm going to be probably needing Wyoming tonight.
Good spot for it on the schedule for us. I mean, obviously it's a Friday night game, 5:00 Pacific start, and won't get lost in tomorrow's shuffle. Certainly going to do a lot more business on this game tonight than we would if it were tomorrow afternoon or evening.
I got a friend of mine. Matter of fact, he texted me today talking about some handle figures. He was interested in doing some research. I pointed him to a few different things, and something that we've said on the show many times, that when PAPSA was overturned, it took a little bite out of Nevada briefly.
Right.
But I said it was going to grow the market. Well, if you see my handle figures for last night's games, which was an okay slate,
right,
it was a monster handle. You go back even to Wednesday night, and it was one of those deals where Michael Glass, how did we lose that much? I said, see how much money we had on these games? You can't believe we lost both games. But not much of a schedule, but the handle's just been terrific, and I think the market has grown, and Las Vegas does a lot of things right. If a market is growing, we're going to get our share of it.
It's again, like you said, it was a quick little nibble at the beginning, and that was it.
Yeah, not much, a little bit.
Yeah, small bit.
People want and love the Las Vegas experience.
I can't. Hey, look, as soon as Formula One leaves town, it'll be even better again.
Yeah, amen.
That's a different.
I didn't want to go.
That's a different discussion for
we
a
have
different
next
day.
week to complain about that.
Well, two more weeks, guys. All right, let's go to the Saturday slate rotation number order, and this may confuse the folks on why we're starting here, but we're starting here. Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina in the belt. Chris, this one is again pivoting. Not much of a difference between a 1-point favorite and a pick, but it's pivoted between that. Early numbers at other shops open Coastal Carolina a favorite, but Old Dominion right now a 1-point favorite in this game. Total up a point to 51.5.
Yeah, I opened Dominion 1. We've had both sides favored by 1 in this one, and I got a ton of business on this game. It's another one where if you asked me, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we might not have been booking these two teams, but now I got a ton of money on this one, and people seem to love it. But I kind of like Coastal Carolina in this game, but we'll see what happens. Like I say, my opinion is good for one bet. That's plenty. With the kind of numbers we take, but we'll see what happens. I kind of like them, but kind of take your choice on what side you want to take here.
There's always a surprise game or two during on a college football Saturday that you're looking and go, how could this game be doing? That's not a Power 5 matchup or a Notre Dame, and you look at it and say, wow, but you know what? Now this is a game too where this is predominantly professional money too, right? This is not John Q. Public playing it, which is fine too, and then but word spreads and people get involved, and then you got a game here where you've had both sides. As a slight favorite either way. By the way, and at South Point too, Chrissy does a good job. There's still a money line up with if it's one. Yeah. So again, pay attention to that part of it too. If you think it's that close, you have another option there. A lot of times, not a money line available if one of the sides is favored by one, especially if it's going back and forth between one side and the other as a shift in favorites.
Vinny, you've talked about professional money. And it is true. That's what's moving the numbers here. But a lot of guys, they just want action.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, if you're doing it, a lot of people in here are doing it for a living. I understand that. But a lot of people just want some entertainment. Now, you don't want to lay 7.5 when the pros laid 6. But if you get bet a game, pick them, and the pros took 1 or laid, whatever. You're taking a slightly the worst of it. But the word gets out.
Yeah.
The pros are on this side. Meanwhile, we've got pros on both sides in this game.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to play, pick whoever you like.
Opinions travel.
Yeah, they do.
They sure do.
They're very good. I like that.
I like Coastal Carolina in this game for what it's worth. They were on my list.
That's what I like too.
Yeah, they were on my list at the beginning of the week. As soon as I saw this move all over the place, I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait this out. We'll see if we somehow get north of a point. I don't think we're going to get that, but regardless, Coastal Carolina, I
think you get even money over here if you want to bet the money.
Yeah, there are a few teams this year, and I know it's weird to say since we're in the first weekend of November. There are just some teams that I don't think the power rating ever got fully right on. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, or at least I differ on what power ratings are on some of these teams. Coastal Carolina is one of those teams that I think is still a little bit undervalued based off of what we've seen from them, especially the last 3 weeks, winning 3 in a row.
And you get the opportunity to compare that, our power ratings to and the posting to what you think. And to Chris's point, if you can get even money, why lay $1.10?
No, I'd rather have any plus money, even money scenario on a money line. It sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. Even a plus 102 would sound pretty good to me on a money line. All right, let's go to Miami and North Carolina State. NC State sent Dabo Swinney and Clemson to 4-4 last week. Miami, just a little erratic, right, guys? A little erratic. They found a way in overtime, though, last week against Virginia. Tony Elliott and company almost pulled back-to-back stunners.
That's another. We talked about Virginia Tech. Virginia's turned it around, too, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not surprised that's happened. I'm a little stunned that it came with the victory at Chapel Hill mixed in, but I'm not as surprised that they've started to look at least a little more competitive. Chris, you opened 4 up to 6 now in the Canes.
Up to 6. A lot of money on the favorite in this one. I'm not sure where that came from, to tell you the truth. I think we're getting up to the point where almost like the dog. I mean, I thought the opening number was okay. I really made it only 3. We talk about momentum sometimes, and momentum could be a very vague concept, but you could bet momentum in college football. If you bet momentum in the NFL, you're going to get murdered.
Yes.
You have to look for the worm turning, on occasion, or on a lot of occasions. But you could bet it in college football. And right now, I'm not sure Miami has much momentum going for them right now. So I think NC State might be the right side here.
Which Miami's going to show, right?
We have no idea.
There you go.
You think about
no
it.
clue.
And a little move to the under from 45 on the opener to 44.
All I could say is America Cristobal knew to just take a knee and end that game against Georgia Tech.
Change their season.
I mean, they would have a backdoor shot to make the ACC title game. They still do, but they have to beat Florida State and Louisville in order to get there. And back-to-back games, that is not happening later in the year. That's next week, by the way. They go to Tallahassee against Florida State, who is in the playoff at the moment, according to the committee. They still haven't added that bookmaker to the committee, right, Vinny?
No, I haven't seen anybody I recognize.
Let's keep it rolling. Here we go. S game. Can't be making too much fun of it to kick off that CBS triple header.
You got a New York crowd, with Ohio State.
So,
Rutgers.
Chris, you're at 19 on this game right now, 42.5. Ohio State rated number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. Again, we could talk about this until we're blue in the face, but guess what? It'll all work itself out because they still have to play Michigan in the final week of the regular season.
Got to play Penn State, too.
Ohio State.
Oh, no, they play tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And Michigan is Penn State next week.
I'm sorry.
But Ohio State, Chris, 19 here in this one. Open 19, little nibble back to 18.5, but back to 19 now. Nibble back to 18.5, but back to 19 now. And the total, you have not moved it all week.
I'm getting the little even action there. We did get a little nibble, like you said, on the dog. I made the number 20. I'm not gonna pull out your bingo card. I'm not gonna dicker with 19.
There we go.
It's right there. May have a little bit of value to play the favorite. Because 20 obviously is a pretty key number. But if I was out there playing, I would not. That wouldn't be enough to entice me. But I don't know. I hope we get a good game out of this one. Let's just say that.
Rutgers tough out at home this year, Jeff, as we've been following. I mean, and again, Ohio State, it's just shy of 3 touchdowns. That's probably the take back at some point, although even though they did take a little bit of 19 earlier in the week, I think maybe some folks may be thinking this is going to go up. I'm not so sure it will because of the fact that Rutgers is a pretty tough out at home, especially in the first half, right? So we'll see how it plays out. But I think the weather, by the way, is going to be pretty good up and down the East Coast and down south. I don't think weather is going to be an issue in too many places. After during the middle of the week, there was some some pretty bizarre weather, pretty
60,
winter-like.
61 and clear.
Now it's I think they're going to be some record highs, so weather shouldn't be a factor in these games.
I'm curious to see how Ohio State looks on the road. We have seen Ohio State at least so far this year in road games. That was, even though they won last week, that was pretty sluggish against Wisconsin and Madison, which I think the Badgers, who already beat Rutgers this year, but with no Mordecai, are pretty close to what Rutgers is giving at this point. Obviously, we know the Notre Dame game, and then that week one game against Indiana, where that was a game for a lot longer than it needed to be in Bloomington to open the season. Sleepy spot potentially, number one in the country. Maybe they feel entitled to something. Who knows? Crazy things happen in college football every single week.
As good as Rutgers has played in the first half, Ohio State has not played real good in the first half. And again, Rutgers particularly good at home. So certainly bears watching, Jeff. Right,
Rutgers is, by the way, Rutgers already bowl eligible, which is pretty amazing. 8 games in, they're 6-2. Great coaching job by Shiano.
Absolutely, he's done a terrific job. By the way, we always talk about home field advantage, and I always say it's the difference between home and road. And the Ohio State's is pretty dramatic. I still give them. I had them a 5-point home field advantage. I've dropped them down to 4 going into this season. I might have to put them back up to about a 5, though, because they are definitely much better at home.
Well, that's just the product of what you were saying. You were talking about this last week on the show where, we know the Shoe is an amazing home field advantage, but hey, put them on the road, they look like a different team. It's just more than just the Shoe.
Yeah, I might have to go to 5. I really might have to.
Let's go to Florida State next. We'll touch on this one quickly here. Florida State in the initial top 4. Chris, you said you don't have a lot on this game here. 21.5 on the Noles on the road in Pittsburgh against the Panthers.
Open 22, just got a little bite. I went with a market. We had some money on them, so I went down to 21.5. But not much action on this game at all.
Not even the total.
Yeah. Pitt looked really awful last week against Notre Dame.
If anybody didn't catch it, I get all the Pittsburgh papers and stuff. So, papers, you know what I'm talking about.
The digital papers.
Yeah. Narduzzi had to apologize to his team because he essentially said they're not very talented.
Well,
and I hate to say he's kind of right, but he still had to apologize.
Thanks, Coach.
That wasn't the way to say it. I think he wanted to say, I needed to coach them up and get them to be more talented, something like that. But that's not the way the players took it, and I don't blame them. You're a very proud athlete, and you don't want to be told you're not very good.
Let's go to the next one on the card, which is 337, 338. It's a conference matchup in College Park, Maryland here. The Terps, who are going the wrong way after a really great, that second half in Columbus kind of flipped their season for the worse. A ridiculous loss last week in Evanston against Northwestern for Maryland. Now to get Penn State, who, Penn State, talk about sleepwalking. They sleepwalked for 58 minutes and 30 seconds last week against Indiana, but were able to get away with it over at Beaver. Chris, open 9.5, and it has been a nice steady take on the Terps here.
Well, we were up as high as 10.5, and then back down to 9.5. I actually have a lot of money on this game both ways. Let me just tell you, there's 2 teams that have given Penn State trouble going back to the 90s.
Okay.
Indiana's one of them. And Maryland is another one. This is a big recruiting game. Even, when they weren't in the same conference and all that, they have a history. And I don't know if you remember the one game, Maryland refused to shake Penn State's hands before the coin flip. So there's a lot of bad blood here. And I don't think these coaches have made it any better. So I think this is going to be a bitterly fought game. But you're right. I think I kind of like Penn State in this game. I wouldn't go crazy. My numbers came to 11. I just think, like you said, Maryland going a little bit the wrong directions. Penn State can and does blow out teams. I know the rumor is, and I have to believe it, Franklin knows the numbers. You have to believe that. And plus, if he has a chance to stick it to Maryland, he is going to do it.
This game, we found a buyback, at 9, right, Chris? I think the threshold for the favorite. Tricky spot for the Nittany Lions here. I would say, given, I think Chrissy hit it on the head, and with the rivalry, with the recruiting aspect of it, and you talk about a team. You mentioned how the Ohio State game changed some things. This 2 years in a row. This year they were tied at half. Last year they were ahead at half against the Buckeyes. Were the Terps. So Look for a pretty spirited effort here against Penn State.
It is a look-ahead spot for Penn State. They do have Michigan next week.
Yeah.
But after that performance a week ago, I don't know how you could be looking ahead against anyone after doing what they did last week.
I don't think they're going to look ahead. Like I said, this rivalry is pretty intense.
Let's keep it rolling here. Chris, I was fully prepared to skip this game, but then you told me, no, I can't skip this game.
No.
And
I know where you're going.
And that's BYU in West Virginia, where so you guys still at 11 right now, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, their market now has moved to 12 on this game. I'm just looking at the card of how this game has moved. Sure, why not, guys?
I forget where we opened the number. Actually, I kind of liked
10.5, right?
I kind of liked BYU a little bit.
Okay.
Next thing you know, where'd I go? I went as high as 13. All on, like I said, my opinion's worth one bet. So we went up to 13. So they took the 13, took the 12.5, and they took the 12.5 off me, and there was 13.5s out there. I said, and even though I like the dog, I said, just leave it. I don't want to start giving points away here. Well, they came back and bet me again. I got to tell you. Then they took the 12.5, they took the 11, they took the 10.5. I was down at 9.5. They started betting it back up. They laid me 9.5, 10, 11, 12, 12.5. I told you, Jeff, before we went on the air, this is like a Monday night pro game if Kansas City and Miami were playing on Monday night, that would be the game of the week. Right now, this is the game of the week. I have so much business on this game, it's unbelievable. And I don't know where it came from, but obviously a lot of opinions out there and a lot of people backing it with their dollars.
It's funny because I go through those Big 12 games every single week, and this was the first one of the 7 games in the Big 12 this week that I crossed off immediately. No, thank you for me. And of course, like you said, I mean, just look, it's amazing that is. And you mentioned this before, Vinny. Every week there's one game. It's like, wait a second, what happened here? Why is there so much action? And even though it's a Power 5 game,
sure,
it kind of fits the bill for that.
But you think about it, right? Bedlam is this. We'll get to Bedlam in a little bit.
Kansas
Oklahoma
State.
Yeah. This is not only the biggest game in the Big 12 right now to handle, Chris. It's the biggest game on the highest handle game on the board so far.
Washington, USC, right? That's nothing. Yeah, forget about it. Yeah.
Oh man, Coach Prime, forget it. No, it's BYU and West Virginia.
It's crazy, and like I said, I'm just moving with my business. I don't know what else to do because I got money both ways. I just got to move with wherever they bet me.
Incredible. BYU right now 11. There's some 11-point underdogs. West Virginia the favorite in this one. Total 49. There's 12 in the market as well. So if you like West Virginia, it might be your last shot at an 11 right behind us here at the South Point.
I see one 11.5. I see a couple 12.5s. I see 12s. And like I said, I don't know who it was betting. I'm not sure. It might have been one of the services that gave out one side and maybe another service gave out the other side.
Great.
Fantastic. As long as we don't fall anywhere near that number, then I'll be very happy.
Hey, West Virginia by 17. Everyone's happy with that.
I know. I would be.
Yeah, so. It'd be great for the book. It would not be good for people at BYU, though. But there's a winner and loser every game. All right, let's go to Bot Tech in Louisville. Virginia Tech. Let's take the Hokies for a second here.
Mm-hmm.
The Virginia Tech Hokies, if they win out, are going to make the ACC title game.
Yes.
As we all expected. They go to Louisville, where I got to give Louisville a lot of credit. I know Riley Leonard was hurt. I know that he is not he missed last night's game, and more likely than not, the season's probably over.
Like it,
but Louisville, they showed me a lot last week in a game that it was 23-0, and it was not even that competitive. They just smoked Duke in every facet of the game last week. Now to get Va Tech, I mean, Chris, Louisville wins out there in the ACC title game, and they even have a loss to play with at this point in conference play.
Yeah, I opened this game 10. I had a little bit of a take. I went to 9.5. Looks like it's going back to 10 almost everywhere. Talk great things about Louisville, and they deserve it. But, Jeff, as we said earlier in the show, Virginia Tech looks like they may have turned some things around. I think it's going to be a real competitive game. I do think 10's a good number in this game. I'm at 9.5 with a little bit of action, but I think 10's fine. I think it's going to be a really interesting game.
Louisville, one of the real surprises in college football. I mean, particularly in the ACC. I mean, we knew about Florida State and certainly North Carolina got a lot of publicity and things. But I think Louisville's one of the surprises. But now to go against a team that's fighting and turn things around, right? One of the teams we mentioned earlier that's really corrected their season. It's harder, I think, in football to turn a season around because of how shorter it is compared to, let's say, college basketball, right?
Sure.
You can get some teams in college basketball, they look so bad, or their record, I should say, doesn't look good in the first month of the season. But then you have to look into that and break it down and say, well, you know what? It's a small school. They're going out of conference. They're playing all the Power 5 schools to get ready for conference play, and they turn things around. And by the time they get to the tournament, they're a dangerous out. It's not as easy to do in college football with so many less games.
Well, in college basketball, you could find two guys maybe who all of a sudden stepped up. They matured. They figured the game out. Figured out what their coach is telling them. College football. There's 22 guys, 11 on each side of the ball, at least, and that it is a little harder to turn some things around. But we talk about momentum, a little bit of momentum for both these teams right now. So I think it's gonna be a really good game.
Speaking of college basketball, you ready for Monday, Chris?
No.
100 and.
We're talking to Tom, the manager of the sportsbook, Tom Blazek's getting all the sheets ready. He says, "Can I put these on one sheet?" I said, "Tom, I don't know how you're going to get them on one sheet. I think you got to go 2 sheets with this one."
Yeah, 100 games plus on Monday. Granted, looking at the schedule, you got a lot of these D1 versus non-D1 games that you won't have to book.
Yeah,
for you,
well,
because
I wore my school's colors.
There you go, Robert
Morris. We're not. I think we are D1 in basketball, but
we're
not. Nobody will confuse us with Gonzaga or Kansas or any of those.
Vinny, you ready for the Battle of Long Island of St. Joseph's, Long Island against Hofstra to kick off your day on Monday?
How could we not be ready?
You ready for that
game? I played at Hofstra.
11:30.
When I was in high school, we had the state title. We had the state championships
at Hempstead.
We're at Hofstra.
Here we go. College basketball, amazingly enough, starting on Monday.
I think the first turf. Was it the first artificial turf field on Long Island also?
I would make
literally
sense.
indoor-outdoor carpet on plywood.
Yeah, that sounds right.
You could hear the wood under your hoofs.
Yeah, that sounds right. All right, speaking of baseball stadiums here, guys. Wrigley Field the site for Iowa and Northwestern. Chris, you have Iowa as a 5.5-point favorite in a game that's totaled 31. Amazingly enough, that total has not moved all week here at the South Point.
I don't think we budged. I kind of like the favorite a little bit. I mean, it's.
Well, Brian Ferentz not returning next year, already announced.
Oh, yeah, I think the Steelers are going to hire him.
Trade. Yes, Ferentz for Canada. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, God. Oh, that would really complete the whole circle here. No,
Same colors.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You don't have to change any kits.
Black and gold. I got them. I kind of like the favorite a little bit. I'm at 5.5, mostly 5, but I mean, I got bet. They bet me the favorite, so that is why I'm at 5.5. I did not use my opinion here. Like I said, I like the favorite a little bit, but I don't know if I'd be laying points in a game where the total's 31.
A lower total than the Army Air Force game, which we'll get to.
We'll get to that in a few moments.
31.
It's Iowa, though. I mean, they continue
pointing it out to our viewers.
They continue to play three-dimensional chess, or not even three-dimensional chess, one-dimensional chess, basically on offense.
And you keep waiting for a couple of defensive scores by them or any other the other team. I mean, something
that's
special
your only
teams.
shot here. Well, your best shot.
Think about it.
31, 17-14.
That's a good old push.
And you don't. I was going to say, and you don't cash the under.
Yeah. I think that's a very realistic final score in this game.
Sure.
I actually think Northwestern's offense is better than people give it credit for. So this is one of those where it's like, all right, what's the total on the Iowa one? If it's in the honestly at this point, if it's in the 30s, it's a consideration to be bet under, with just how they play. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm going to play this like I played that Minnesota game, where I'm going to wait, see if we get an in-game number that's even 2 points higher, or like that Minnesota Iowa game where the in-game numbers that are done by computers. Iowa drove for a field goal on the opening drive and didn't change the total, even though it was a 7-minute drive for a field goal. It's like, all right, well 7 minutes off the clock and only 3 points. I'm good with this. Iowa's not going to have another drive like this the rest of the game, and they didn't. The only thing they almost did was that punt return that got called back for the illegal fair catch.
Yeah.
So, again, Iowa, they're just a mess to watch. I actually hope Northwestern wins this game so we don't have to waste the Big Ten title game on Iowa losing to Ohio State or Michigan 27-3.
When my daughter was picking colleges, I told her, check out Northwestern. She wound up at Penn State, so a Big Ten school. I said, check out Northwestern. I mean, it's a great school, just outside of Chicago. I've always kind of liked Northwestern. It's a shame kind of what happened to that program this year. I'm not sure we know all the details yet, but, Jeff, I'm kind of with you. I didn't bet the game, obviously. I'm not betting, really. I'm just booking. But I kind of hope Northwestern wins this game. I really do.
Just win the game 13-9. Like, that's good. Under gets there. Northwestern eliminates Iowa from the Big Ten West. Right? That's good with me. All right, let's go down the board here. Chris, nothing on Illinois and Minnesota, even though it looks like the bettors have taken Illinois a little bit in this game.
It's a two-way game, and it's not a toggler between 2.5 and 3. It's a toggler between 2 and 2.5. So, good action on the game. I'm not looking for I don't think we're going to have a great rush to the counter to bet this one, but, we're kind of in dead number zone, and I'm not sure it's all that interesting of a game. It's going to get lost in that 12:30 window with much, much better games on the docket.
It sure will. It sure will on that. The only reason I even brought that up is when that opened, I did take a quick 3 on Illinois that was there at other books.
Good number.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we never had that.
You didn't have it. It was there was another book and other 2 books in town that had 3, at least on Sunday night, because I envisioned that not staying. And
Good. Take somebody else's money for a change.
No, it's okay. No, whatever. I can do that.
Anytime.
I can do that. Right. All right, let's do that. Let's go here. Let's go to Colorado. Let's go to Boulder. Bizarre news out of Colorado today that Prime demoting Sean Lewis.
New OC, yes.
And now Pat Shurmur's going to get moved from an analyst to the co-offensive coordinator and the play caller, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Sean Lewis is what is Sean Lewis supposed to do? He has no offensive lineman. And if anything, their play calling has been great for having no offensive lineman. Instead, we're going to get Shurmur, who we saw Pat Shurmur a lot in the NFL, is going to be a very slow tempo offense against Oregon State now, which I don't think that's the way you should do it with that Colorado roster. Chris, you're 13 with the Beavs laying it on the road at 61.5. Oregon State, of course, coming off a loss to Arizona last time out.
Yeah, not much business on this game. I've been working on some other stuff, so I didn't hear about the Pat Shurmur news. This is all news to me. But who was it? Was it Oregon saying that they were kind of talking a lot of smack to Colorado when they played? Like, wow, you guys are really small. You guys, yeah. So you're right. He didn't have much of a offensive line, And listen, it makes sense in a lot of ways. I don't want to knock Coach Prime, but he went after some skill position players first and figured he could add some depth in the trenches over the next couple of years. But he's going to have to do that if they're going to be competitive, and no matter what league they wind up in.
Well, they're in the Big 12 next year. I agree with you. If they add some beef up front, I would imagine Shadur is going to go to the NFL this year, but he'll be able to reload, and there are going to be a lot of good players that want to go play for him.
I think so, yeah.
So, get some beef up front, and it's a whole different ballgame for Colorado.
Well, the Shurmur hire probably speaks to the total, right? Getting played to the under a little bit, talking about pace, Jeff. But I'm not so sure that Colorado's players are going to like that. I mean, they like the up-tempo game themselves when you watch them play. So I think it's going to be interesting. And the other part is, what does that do, to the coaching staff? I mean,
Sean Lewis left the head coaching job.
I mean, just like, yeah. So I think it's it could work against them internally.
Yeah, bizarre, very short-sighted, short-term move that makes no sense for me in more than maybe just a
more
week.
Than halfway through the season.
Yeah, really, really silly. Yeah. More than anything from Prime on that. 13, the number Oregon State favored. This is a night game, so I'm sure people will eventually make their way to betting this one with that 6 o'clock Pacific start time. All right, Salt Lake City, Utah. Maybe Oregon's just that good because that was a vicious beatdown Utah took last week against the Ducks. Now they welcome in Arizona State. Chris, you haven't moved the number all week. It's stuck at 11.5. Total has been bet down to 40, though.
Yeah, that's I've had good action on the total, but really not even that great of action on the sides, either one of them. I think right now a little hard to predict that, Arizona State playing much better, I think, than I had them at the beginning of the year. Utah playing much worse, but of course I didn't know that their top quarterback was going to be out essentially for the season, which he is now.
Yes.
But they have a terrific defense. We see the total. You're talking about 11.5 point spread with a total between 39 and 40. That'll tell you a lot about both teams right there. So I look for this should be a close game. I have no real opinion here. I just open at 11.5, and when they bet me, I'll move it.
I could see the take probably at some point, just a rebound. Coaching, one of the better coaching staffs really in Utah. But I'm not so sure even with if they were healthy last week that there would have been much of a difference against an Oregon team, which they've definitely refocused themselves after that loss to Washington. I give them a lot of credit for what they've done, but I could see the money I could see the number getting taken here at 11.5.
Let's go to Mile High for the next one. Commander-in-Chief Chris, I just find this comical, but it just shows what the difference in these two teams are. You open this one, Air Force and Army. You opened at a total of 31.5, and you opened 20-point favorites on Air Force in a 31.5 total. The total's gone up to 32.5, but it's been one-way ticket on Army here, down all the way to 17.5 now.
I like the favorite.
I tend to agree with you.
I like the favorite. I got Army penciled in. I mean, if they score more than 7, I will be stunned. I got to tell you, I don't have them penciled in for any more than 7. Now, can Air Force come with 27? Because that's what you need in order to cover this number, which would put the game over. But I like Air Force here. I don't think I don't think Army even sniffs the end zone here. So I like the Air Force, even the big number and a low total, but I think they're that much better.
Air Force wins this game, right? They lock up the Commander-in-Chief trophy.
Yep.
I mean, they beat Navy already. And in bad weather, this will be a better situation here. But look, it's an academy game. It's a rivalry game, so I could see the take on it. So we'll see. It's 17.5, maybe 17 gets the favorite money.
Well, I opened the game 20. I thought that was a good number. I really did.
Based off of the first college football playoff rankings, Air Force and Tulane are going to be battling it out for the non-Power 5 spot in one of the New Year's Six Bowls, both rated 24 and 25 respectively on Tulane and Air Force. All right, going to the Pac-12, UCLA and Arizona real quick here, Chris. Good game here. UCLA 2.5-point favorites in Tucson. This is a toggler, as you guys would say. 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3 right now, 2.5 on the Bruins.
Great action on the total as well. Over 48.5, 49, under 50. So great action. This is a terrific game, and I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a late game, along with the Oregon and Colorado game. Oregon State and Colorado. That's going to be on ESPN. This one's going to be on FS1. I expect to have some decent play late tomorrow night. It's 2 real good games.
Love these Pac-12 games in prime time on Saturday. Always do a lot of business, and so that this one won't disappoint, to Chrissy's point.
The premier game in the Pac-12 is where we go next. Washington travels to the Coliseum to take on a laboring USC squad right now. Chris, you opened 4.
I did.
You're down to 3.
Yep.
And it feels like and the total, by the way, opened 76. It's now 77.5. By the way, I still don't think 77.5 is high enough in this game with USC's defense. But I'm a little bit surprised at the way that the market has played this game out, with it pretty much basically being, other than a quick toggle at one point, pretty much been one-way traffic on USC here.
I got to tell you, around this time of year, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, you see teams getting a lot better or getting a lot worse. I think right now USC looks like they're getting a lot worse to me.
I agree.
I'm not sure their heart's in it. I think they had illusions of being, right there in the national championship. Now they're looking at playing at the Sun Bowl or something like that. And I think Washington is still a real good team. They beat Oregon. And the more I look at it, I don't think they're better than Oregon. Matter of fact, I got Oregon a point better than them, but I still think they're clearly better than USC. I thought my opening number of 4 was a good number, and I don't mind being in a position to need Washington in this game.
Which team has recovered? Right. I mean, when I say recovered, I should say, or responded from a real battle, right? Washington wins a battle against Oregon. I think Oregon is actually
they've been much better since that game.
Responded tremendously to that. I think Washington has taken a step back since that game.
You're probably right.
And SC just has not been the same since that beating at South Bend. So SC's fighting to play on New Year's weekend. Let's face it.
I think Washington's just a much better football team.
No, they are.
And it's just a matter of...
Better defense, for sure.
Well, we know they have, 100%. Again, I think the 7 of us in the studio, add 4 people from the book, we might be as good as USC's defense.
Bet the over.
Very good, Vinny. But if you're Washington, again, should have lost that game to Arizona State. They were pretty fortunate last week against Stanford. Mm-hmm. Those are 2 of the worst teams, if not the 2 worst teams in the conference. And now you get USC, who you would, if they care at all anymore, has to be a little bit annoyed with how the last 3 weeks have gone for them. So, again, I still think Washington beats them. And, again, I don't think that total, 77.5, wildly high, highest one this week. Still think it's too low, as wild as that may seem to everyone out there. All right, let's go to Ames next. This is a really good game.
Have you been talking to Frank? Why is that? Why?
I have more. I will say I have a little more a few more overs than I normally would. So if they lose, I might have to just stop talking to Frank altogether, Chris. But let's go to Ames. This is actually a really good game in the Big 12.
Yeah, it is.
Kansas off their big time upset of Oklahoma a week ago. Mm-hmm. How about Iowa State? Tied for first place in the Big 12. That's what we all expected.
They really did,
really, what a turnaround from a team that looked totally lost early in the year. Now, Chris, the bettors like the Cyclones in this game. Their names up to 3. Open 3, 2.5, 3, 53.5. The total for this one, down from 54.
I kind of like the Cyclones a little bit myself. I think that this was such a huge game for Kansas last week.
Program-changing win.
Yeah, I have some in-laws that live in Kansas, and they're big Jayhawk fans. We were texting each other after the game. He reminded me that I told them years ago when they hired Lance Leipold, I said, I don't know, Kansas, there's no reason for Kansas not to be among some of the best teams in the country. They obviously have a lot of money. They got Bill Self. Is he the highest paid college basketball coach? He's right up there. I know that.
The top 3.
Yeah, he's right up there. So there's no reason for them not to be among one of the great programs. And they finally got the right guy. They didn't get Weiss. They didn't get Miles. They didn't get Turner Gill. They had a lot of bad hires, but I think they finally hired the right guy here. And if he stays there, and there's no reason why he shouldn't, they should have plenty of money. Then this team has a chance to be there for a while. Yeah, but that being said, Iowa State has really come back from the dead, and I think this is just a good spot for Iowa State and a bad spot for Kansas.
After a big emotional win, right? So a little bit of a letdown spot. Again, 2-way action, right? As long as it doesn't fall, home team 3. So laying 2.5, taking 3. Good 2-way action on the game.
This is all going to depend on the quarterback play for me, both sides. Where Rocco Becht has improved throughout the year, the freshman quarterback. And Jason Bean, we got the full Bean experience last week. You saw a lot of good, you saw a bunch of bad, and you saw him come up big in the final moments of that game. I do, at 3, it would be a take only for me. 2.5, it was nothing for me on that one. But KU, I think they're the better team, but it is a hellacious spot for Kansas, as you both said.
Yeah, I would say the opposite.
Yeah.
At 2.5, I would play the dog. At 3, I think I would just lay off.
Right now, Oklahoma State we'll get to in a second, because that game actually just moved a little bit here at the shop. But we'll get to that in a second, because we got to get the Primo CBS game. Final time in prime time on the eye for LSU and Alabama. Chris, Alabama's 3. 61.5 is the total on this one. I'll say this. I like the favorite. You're only having to lay a field goal at home with the Tide against an LSU team that, even though their defense has gotten better over the last few weeks, is still a bad defense. Hey, we could be looking back at this one and like, wow, we only had to lay 3 with Alabama in this game.
Jeff, I'm with you. I made this not a lot higher. I made it 5. That'd be a borderline play if I was out there betting. But boy, I for me, it'd be Bama or nothing. I really do. I mean, and I think Kelly's a good coach. He's done a good job at LSU. The defense has gotten a little bit better, but you're only laying 3 with Nick Saban at home. I mean, listen, I've been saying it for years. You might not get rich betting on Nick Saban at this point in his career. You ain't gonna get rich betting against him. I can tell you that. I'd have Bama or pass in this game. I think that 3 is just gonna look. I think no matter what, we're gonna look at this number and think it was pretty cheap.
I'd be shocked if this number doesn't go up, and not just because my power rating with the home field here, it's closer to a touchdown, 6 easy. Now that doesn't mean that they're going to win this game and blow them out. I think it's going to depend on Alabama having a better first half than they've had in, for most of this season. But just their halftime adjustments have been terrific. But again, the thing about LSU is they can score, right? So Alabama, though, Jeff, you and I talked off air. I actually have them in one of, and
you have them as top 14,
as a top 4 team in power ratings. So that's why the polls are one thing, and the committee, again, the committee does their job with all due respect. But this game, in my opinion, will go higher. I don't see it going below 3.5 or below 3.
Yeah, I definitely don't see that.
So
3.5. Maybe. I don't think we'll get north of that, but we'll see. I already laid the 3. I laid the 3 with Alabama.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I'm like, all right, well, if it goes lower, so be it. It's a rarity that you ever see that low of a number at home for Nick Saban and company. All right, now we go to Bedlam. Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. Chris, he actually moved it right before showtime here, down to 5 on this one from 6. OU favored in Stillwater, total 62. The one question I have in this game is this run that Oklahoma State has been on the last month. Is it real? Is it real? It's really been on the legs of Ollie Gordon, who ran for over 250 yards a week ago.
Great.
It's just a question of, for me, because I'm not high on Oklahoma. I think they played above their heads early in the year. You look at the offensive numbers, they're pretty average for what you would expect out of Oklahoma. But it all comes down to, is this Oklahoma State run, are they a real team that if they win this game, they're going to be playing in Arlington in a few weeks in the Big 12 title game probably.
I made the number 5.
Yeah.
So
right right now.
I really don't have an opinion in this game. Not much of a fan of either one of these teams, I got to tell you. I'm not a fan of the mullet, although he's done a hell of a job coaching. And Oklahoma, I make the joke every year, usually to Vinny, my annual right of summer to overrate Oklahoma. I didn't do that this year. I think see my 67th year on this earth, I've kind of figured it out that I tend to do that. But I'm not a fan of either team. I think I made the number 5, but I will say this. This is in the 12:30 slot. This is going to be a hell of a game.
Oh, yes, it will be.
This will be a hell of a game. So I'm really anxious to watch this. We're looking at a total of 62, so it should be a high-scoring game. A lot of passion. Looks like the last Bedlam.
Last one for a while.
For a while, anyway. We'll see what happens in the future. But I don't think these, certainly the next couple of years, are not going to be playing. So there's going to be a lot of passion on this. If gun to my head, I'd probably take Oak State with being at home in a situation like this.
Look, they're on a roll, right? And
playing
since the Texas game, we talked about Washington since the Oregon game. Now look at Oklahoma since the Texas game. Took a lot out of them. Games not only take a physical toll, but sometimes they take a mental toll too, and it takes a while for particularly younger players. When I say younger, like collegiate age players compared to pro players, to get back to that mental edge, right? And so This one here wouldn't shock me. You know, you got two teams. I don't want to sit there heading in opposite directions because the upward spiral of Oklahoma State is been well chronicled by us in the last few weeks. It's tough. Emotion plays a big role, and this is a big emotional game here. Now, Venables probably will make some adjustments on defense, which, I mean, obviously that's his forte. And it cost him, against Kansas. I think that surprised a lot of people. So, but again, I think at some point we'll see some Oklahoma money here. We're just looking for that threshold.
Ken, I'm with you on being down on both of these teams. This Oklahoma team, I still think that more to do with Texas, the way they managed that game, than Oklahoma winning that game.
Yeah, and I even liked Oklahoma that week, if you remember.
So we'll see how it plays out. I have nothing on this game whatsoever. This probably is an in-game game more than anything. All right, the old alma mater for myself, Mizzou on the road between the hedges at Georgia this week. Georgia impressive a week ago in their thumping of Florida. Mizzou off the bye. Winner of this game will control the SEC East. Georgia, of course, number 2 in the new college football rankings. Mizzou with their highest ranking ever in this format at number 12 going into this week. Chris, you opened 16 down to 15 on this one. Georgia, of course, favored at home.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good number, the opening number. I don't have any strong opinion here. Jeff, I hate to tell you, I need Georgia to win this game because they bet me season win totals under strong on Georgia. Well, I put it up 7.5, which means,
undefeated
or bust, right? So I need them to be undefeated. So I have no opinion on the number as far as that goes, but I will be rooting for Georgia to at least walk away with a victory here.
You got to be smiling, put your alma mater. They've had a great season, Jeff.
It was a nice little surprise. I didn't expect this team to be better than 8-4.
Again, you watch Georgia, right, and you just figure, when are they going to put together another? Or I mean, what if they had one real complete game? I would say, right, probably against Kentucky.
I would say last week was pretty.
I would say too.
So Kentucky in last week. Yeah. So maybe they've and again more focus with losing their best player with Bennett. So I think this one here, I think there'll be plenty of interest on it. The question is, will it be a one-side? Right now they're betting a dog, but at some point they'll be Georgia money for sure.
Jeff, we passed over the Florida game.
Yeah,
we got to talk about that one.
Sure,
because I opened that game 6. I'm down to 3, and I got to tell you, and I said it last week with the Rice game. I agree with the move. I think that number was too high, and I know I'm fighting the parlay card guys who are out there because I got a 6 on my ties win card, which means you're taking plus 6.5. We got a lot of guys playing, and I got to say, I think the move is right on. I think Arkansas shows up in this game. I think they play big, and I would have. I don't know if I would play the game at 3. I don't think I would, but certainly off the opening number, I definitely like the dog.
I don't like either of those teams, but Florida kind of again showed last week what they are. They're really average. Mertz is average. I don't like Billy Napier. I think he should not be I don't think he should be coaching the SEC. But
they tease you, don't they?
That Arkansas's 2-6.
I know.
Which is kind of amazing that team is as bad as they are.
I agree. They've lost a lot of close games, though. They really have. I think the coach is probably on his way out, and I think they play hard for him here in this spot. I definitely like Arkansas. Off the opening number for sure. 3, I'd have to pass, but off that 6 and the higher numbers, even if you had like a 4.5, which I don't know, you'll never see again, but I could see taking that number.
We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll touch a quartet of college games we didn't get to, and then the National Football League for Week 9. So we break it down. It's a Football Friday. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio.
South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rockin' dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show. Every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grandview Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grandview Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back in hour number 2 of Sports by the Book here at the South Point studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alongside me, Sportsbook Director Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo, the Sports Betting Hall of Famer as well. Both of you guys Sports Betting Hall of Famers.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys on these Fridays, these football Fridays. We'll get to the NFL in a few moments. We still have 3 more college games we got to hit before we get over to the NFL. A shorter card in the NFL as well with a few teams on bye. Let's go to Oxford, Mississippi first, though, Chris. You have not moved this number at all week. Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite at home against Texas A&M, a very important game for Ole Miss's prospects if they're going to find a way to steal a spot in Atlanta in the SEC title game.
Yeah, I think, probably like A&M a little bit. I think, 3 to me would be a take, but very, very close. And again, if I was out there playing, I would pass on this game. But I think it's going to be another real good game. This one's in the 9 a.m. slot. I think the next game we're talking about is going to be in the 9 a.m. slot, too. Probably going to be the best game of that early window. But this is going to be a really good game, I believe. And probably, I think the 3 looks very solid. I see almost nothing but solid 3s. So if you're out there betting, maybe you want to look at something in-game, see how it starts, and see if you could detect something early on.
More movement here, Chris, on the total, too, right?
Yeah,
I think
right.
54 on the opener and down to 51.5 here at South Point. There's 51s out there, so kind of interesting, too. And it looks like A&M's trying to be like well, I don't know if they're trying to be a grind-out team, but their offense is not very good. But Kiffin, Kiffin, when you think they're going to score a ton of points, then they don't. So I don't know. I don't want to say these are programs in transition, but certainly I would say have underachieved a bit, based on what we had anticipated going into the season.
Well, if Ole Miss wins this game and they spring an upset in Athens next week, they're going to have a backdoor shot to make the college football playoff at 11-1. They actually would probably be better off not going to an SEC title game than going to an SEC title game in that scenario. But we'll see. I have nothing on this game. I think that 3 is just about right.
Yeah.
And it has not moved all week here at the South Point. Here's an interesting one in Austin. Right out of the gate, 9 a.m. Pacific for us. Texas hosting Kansas State. Chris, they've taken the Wildcats from 4.5 to 3.5. Total's been bet under from 50.5 to 49.5.
K-State really coming on strong last couple of weeks, playing some terrific football. But I wouldn't overlook Texas too much here. I think this might be a little bit of an over-adjustment. Made the number a little bit higher. If I was out there, if this game went to 3, I'd probably play Texas. But K-State, nothing but giving them a lot of credit. That team is really, I thought they'd be good, but they've just gotten better and better as the year went on. And this should be a terrific game. This is another one I can't wait to watch. I'll need Texas in this game. I don't like them particularly I said, if they got the 3, if I was out there betting, I think I'd play it. But I like Texas a little bit in this spot.
I think Chrissy's spot on. I mean, I think 3 is probably the buyback threshold.
I agree.
And then I think there'll be some over money as well, but come overnight. And again, I always want to point this out. Open 24 hours here, not just with the app. It's walk up as well. 3-shift town, and there'll be plenty of business overnight and before this game kicks off.
Is outscoring your opponents 120-24 in a 3-game stretch pretty good?
Yeah, that's
what
bad.
the Wildcats have done their last 3
Is that
times.
right? 120-24?
Yeah.
That's some momentum right there.
Yeah, it's almost plus 100 in 3 games. Pretty darn good.
It's good.
For the Wildcats. I'm very curious to see what Malik Murphy does in this game. He didn't have to do much last week against BYU.
Right.
BYU just totally overmatched by Texas. Big step up in competition this week. I want to see how the redshirt freshman plays in his second career start against K-State.
Interesting too, Jeff. What you bring up too. You look at some teams that have, particularly with the transfer portal, that are going to go through or have gone through some quarterback transitions. Texas is probably the most stockpiled team.
Arch Manning's
at
number 3.
Quarterback.
Yeah.
He can't get in the game. I mean, think about that, which he's probably going to go. But you mentioned Malik Murphy, so I thought that was something that reminded us. I mean, for a long time, teams, Clemson, look at Clemson. I don't think they ever expected, to be in the position they're in, having guys transfer, particularly from the quarterback position.
Speaking of Clemson, final college game for us to go through here. Tigers are 3-point underdogs at home against Notre Dame. Clemson is 4-4, amazingly enough. But I didn't bet this game. This one scares me because everything we've watched this year shows that Notre Dame is a better football team than Clemson, and the number shows it here. But Clemson's has the 7th most appearances in the red zone this year, and they're scoring at less than 35% clip touchdowns in the red zone. All it takes is one good game in the red zone, and all of a sudden, things look a little bit different down there.
I don't think Clemson is nothing more than a good football team.
I
think Notre Dame is very good. I've been high on Notre Dame, even in preseason. Anybody knows me knows I am not a Notre Dame fan, believe me. But I have to be, in my position, my job is to be as objective as possible making these numbers. I'll tell you something off the air. But I think right now Notre Dame is the right side here. I made this number a lot higher. I think Clemson is resting on past laurels, and they don't have a stockpile of talent like they've had for like the last decade, and I think it's really showing. And I think there's a great spot for Notre Dame. I really like them. I like them -3. I think this number should be much, much higher.
Probably the biggest drop of a team that's been a playoff team in the 14 playoff era is Clemson. I've dropped them 8, almost 9 points from a power rating standpoint. And again, not some teams get victimized by the transfer portal. Tagovailoa leaving, right? And think about that. They've not recovered from that offensively.
Vinny, I'm checking from where I opened them this season to where they are now. 11 points.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
That's a lot.
Gigantic drop.
That's a lot.
Massive. You just don't see that a lot. That's a rarity, right? So
they're a pretty pedestrian football team, and as ridiculous as it is, a bowl game is no given with Clemson this year because they'll have to play North Carolina in 2 weeks. They play Jekyll and Hyde Georgia Tech. Who knows what you'll get out of Georgia Tech? Yep. And then South Carolina, big time rivalry game.
That's going to be a big game.
Yeah.
Like I said, at this point in the season, many times teams get better or they get worse. I mean, what are you going to say about Clemson? I mean, they're definitely getting worse.
All right, let's go to the NFL. Vinny will have a beer stein of coffee at 6:30 in the morning.
That's exactly right.
Frankfurt, Germany, the site for Miami and Kansas City, as we all intended here. Chris, you opened 2.5, bouncing all over the place right now. KC 1.5 point favorites. Total is 50.5. I do need to bring this up at least because we've talked about the travel with the London games. Miami went on Monday. Kansas City went on Thursday. And I think bettors are more acclimated now to seeing when those teams went over there. And so far this year, the team that has gone earlier to Europe has won outright and covered the 3 London games, Jacksonville both times, and then Baltimore against Tennessee.
Well, again, that's kind of a small statistical sample.
Yes, 3 games.
But overall, that trend is correct. Now, it's not 100%.
Of course.
So, I mean, let's keep that in mind.
Nothing's 100%.
No, nothing's 100%.
No.
So, I mean, Kansas City certainly can win this football game and cover and everything else. But I am with you, Jeff. First of all, strictly from a power rating standpoint, strictly power rating, my numbers come to Kansas City 1.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think right now, Kansas City, I mean, I don't want to put them in Clemson category, but I think they're resting on some past laurels. I don't think they're as good as they've been the last couple of years. They've lost a couple of guys. And we've just kind of poo-pooed it and say, well, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. At some point, they won't be fine. And listen, I still have them as one of my favorites to win the Super Bowl, one of my highest rated power rating teams. But I don't think they're quite as good as they have been the last couple of years. They're just a notch below that.
Last week was very alarming for me. And I know Mahomes was sick.
I know.
But there is a lack of trust with Mahomes and everyone on that offense that's not number 87.
Right.
He trusts 87. We know that. But, Vinny, it's a different look with Kansas City, and I'm a little surprised they didn't go out and at least get, even if it's a complimentary receiver piece at the trade deadline earlier this week.
I completely agree. I was surprised that they did not get involved. Certainly, opponents have a lot of trust in Travis Kelce too, because that's why they double team him. So, to Chris's point as well, I think the fact that you just can't keep losing that kind of quality at a given position and it not catch up to you. But that said, what's interesting that what's carried the Chiefs so far this year is their defense.
Oh yeah,
and I think that's taken some people by surprise. So here you have a game where great matchup, and do you wish it was a primetime game? Yes, but you know what? Bettors adjust. Everybody knows it's that 6:30 Pacific start, so everybody's going to get involved with this one. Again, I said it yesterday. I'm not going out on a limb here saying that this is going to be the highest bet international game. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody because of the 2 teams involved. But I also think that given watching the defense, we're still waiting for the Dolphins to beat a quality opponent. This is their opportunity to do that, going against a solid defense here. So we'll see. I mean, it's a big game. It's a game. This is week 9 where you start talking about playoff tiebreakers, playoff ramifications, and things like that, right? So a pretty important game. And again, even though it's an early start, it's going to get plenty of attention.
Something I just want to mention to Vinny's point. I think guys will come in early for this one. It's something I've noticed maybe in the last 10 years, maybe something like that. Vinny, when we were kids, like there would be a doubleheader. A lot of times at Madison Square Garden. Yeah. The feature game was always second.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Always second.
Yeah.
They've kind of changed it. Now every once in a while they put that feature game first to get everybody there early.
Yeah.
So here's one of those games. I mean, this is. I mean, we got like about 3 what I would call great games.
This is outstanding.
But this one is maybe the best one. Yeah. I think guys. I think they'll be in tonight betting it.
Sure.
I think they'll be in overnight.
Yep.
Everybody knows ever since Michael Gahn had the Royal Inn, we're open 24 hours. Yeah. That's only 50 years. So we're going to be open 24 hours. I think we're going to have a lot of people in overnight. We're going to have a lot of people betting tonight or Saturday night. And I think we'll have a lot of people show up 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah,
let's
go.
And Vinny blew it. He should have a concession stand here selling steins of coffee.
Yeah, he should.
I know.
Vinny, you got 24 hours. You could, or 36 hours. You could still put it together.
I said it.
I put it next to the hot dog.
I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the food and beverage department the minute we get off there.
I'll put in a good word for you with Michael. We'll get
John
get it done.
Please help me.
All right,
I'm here for you, Vinny. I'm here for you, buddy.
Kansas City 1.5 in this 150. I didn't play this at all.
It's a tough guy.
It's a very tough handicap.
I can't wait to watch with that stein of coffee. But
I think we're all going to be ready to roll with
this
that.
This is going to be fun.
I'll have hot cocoa in mine though.
Really?
I'm not a coffee drinker.
What's wrong with some of you people?
I know. My wife gets on me for the same thing. She loves coffee. I hate it. I don't know why.
I'm going to tell you, between now and the playoffs, you're going to convert.
We'll see. I'll take the no on that one, Vinny.
Oh man.
Falcons and Vikings, boy, what a drop off we go from.
This is not one of those three great games.
Jared Hall makes his first career start. Taylor Heineke, look at this. Finally, Arthur Smith realizes who the best quarterback on his roster is. Heineke will get the start for Atlanta. Chris, 37 is the total, which is the lowest of the weekend. And Atlanta is a 4-point favorite, even though it's done some bouncing around. You're back to where you opened.
I always joke I'm terrible with the guys' names and all that other stuff, But this guy from Minnesota, I never heard of until last week. I can tell you that. So, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say, Jeff, you're going to have to pull the trigger. I still don't know his name.
Don't remember BYU?
No, I don't. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, I guess the number's about right. It's going to be hard to see with, Cousins just meant so much to this Vikings team. It's going to be, but a lot of times that first game after the injury, the team rallies and plays well. I've been seeing it for years and years and years. I think the number's about right. I don't think I'd be out there betting it if I were out there playing.
Heineke jumps in, makes a statement, right? I mean, here we go. We have two BYU quarterbacks this weekend, Jeff, in the NFL.
Yeah, we do.
My friend.
Yeah, we do. Zach Wilson, hello.
That's right. So,
yeah.
I mean, look. Cousins, I feel bad for the guy. I mean, he was having a good year. I mean, and was battling through a lot, right? Let's face it. He was rumored to be on the trading block from within the first couple of games of the season. But look, the Vikings now looking to the future. We'll see what happens with Hall here, but Heineke looks to step right in. He's a game, and
that's the quarterback.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I better write that down.
Jaron Hall. Jaron Hall. And look, Heineke's been waiting for this chance, and here it is. It's finally coming week 9.
Atlanta with Heineke, and again, we know what's going to end up happening with him. He's going to probably have a few good starts.
Yeah.
He'll throw a bunch of balls that should be intercepted that aren't intercepted, and then there's going to be one game where they all get caught, and he's going to throw 5 picks. I don't see it coming this week. But you bring it up, Chris. You lose the star, and all of a sudden something happens with the team, and it would not shock me if Jaron Hall plays well and Minnesota pulls an upset here in Atlanta in this game.
Catches up to you by the end of the year, but week 1, the bigger bets for me have come in at +5 and +4.5. So if they were to kick off right now, I'd need Atlanta.
This is a good one in Baltimore. Seahawks with a really nice come-from-behind win a week ago at home against Cleveland. Yeah. They now go on the road to Baltimore, who has been very impressive since their loss to Pittsburgh. The Ravens right now, 6-point favorites in this one, Chris. They won by a touchdown last week. Granted, it wasn't really a touchdown game. That was more of a 17-point game that got tight because of some weird late chicanery in that game against Arizona. 44 to total. Baltimore 6 at home against Seattle.
Yeah, I made it number 5.5, which is where I opened it. They bet me the favorite. I'm up to 6. I'm still not 100% convinced on this Baltimore team. I know a lot of people are. If you listen to the talking heads on ESPN and some of the other networks, they're just in love with this Baltimore team. I still want to see Jackson finish the season unscathed. And I guess he's learned to play more, not just within himself, but, protecting himself than he did earlier in his career. And I think that's going to be really important. That being said, I still think Seattle's a tough team.
Good football team.
It's a good football team. And, sometimes you can just see these big numbers can be very hard to cover in the NFL. And anything over 3.5, that's a big number. And here we are getting 6. Like I said, I made the number 5.5. Would that mean I'd be out betting it? I would not. But I'd be very careful betting the Ravens here. I think it's going to be a really tight game.
NFL games, they come back to the number, right? And you look at, and this may come down to the last possession. I don't know. I mean, I could see, both defenses making some big plays here. Seattle's defense is pretty decent as well. I mean, although, there were plenty of points last week, but they adjust. I mean, Seattle's one of those teams that, they'll play with you however the game goes. They'll adjust within the game. And again, Baltimore, we know what they are. They're certainly a contender. When you look at Jackson and you look at Allen in Buffalo, it's hard to change. Right, the leopard doesn't change the spots, and they are who they are. They realize that they can't run as much as they do, and they try not to. But I think it affects their reads and their thinking, right? And there's a little bit of hesitancy, and I think that in this case, Jackson is still trying to catch up to that element, if you will, feel comfortable, I should say, with that element of his game.
Again, 6 is a lot. These are both playoff teams. Seattle's leading the NFC West right now.
I was going to say, they're in first place in their division.
In the West. Seattle's the biggest difference from Seattle this year to last year, and I don't think Geno's quite as good as he was when he was at his peak a year ago. But that defense stunk last year, and that defense is pretty good right now. They're forcing turnovers. They made the big play when they had to a week ago with Jamal Adams with the header on the interception, leading to the interception going the other way, and then Geno let him down, and Smith and Jigbo ran in that 11-yard touchdown to win the game. But 6 is so many points. Now, I'm not saying Baltimore can't cover it, but that just feels like, all right, you take your points with Seattle, and if Baltimore beats you, so be it.
Yeah, like I said, I made it 5.5, 6. I mean, if I'm out there betting, but 6, obviously, pretty key number.
Yeah.
And I guess gun to my head, I would take the 6.
Let's go to Cleveland next, guys. Deshaun Watson is going to start this game for the Browns. Came down a little bit earlier in the day. We still don't know who's starting for Arizona, but all signs are pointing to Clayton Tune. Of course, Josh Dobbs traded earlier in the week to Minnesota. Kyler Murray has practiced, though, this week. So we can't totally discount possibly seeing him. Chris, you up to 10. Total's down from 40 to 38. Even with before we knew Deshaun Watson was going to be in this game, this is a total, hey, just cross it off. I'm going to the next game. There's too many unknown things here.
Well, again, let's get out your bingo card. Diminishing returns.
There we go.
I started, my power rating number comes to 10.5.
Okay.
Now, I don't like using, again, that's a classic case of diminishing returns. I opened the game 8. They took the 8. They took the 7.5. I went down to 7. I was as low as 7. Then the word came out about Watson. Now I am up to 10. I got a lot of play. I mean, they laid me 7. They laid me 8. They laid me 9. But I did move fairly quickly just because I saw the market going that way. I'm not sure I like him any better with Watson in the lineup. I just don't know about this guy.
I tend to agree with that.
Kyler Murray hasn't played in how long?
Kyler Murray's going to be a little shy of a whole calendar year,
right?
A little shy of a whole calendar year.
If he gets announced as a starter in this game, that will draw money on it. It
should.
Now, but hasn't played in a year. Still, right? I mean, now is he certainly? But you know what you're getting.
He's better than Clayton Tune.
But what I'm saying is, no, you know what you're getting. You have a better idea what you're getting than Clayton Tune. That's why it'll come down if he decides to play. If he doesn't, if he's not, or he doesn't, if it's determined that he's going to play by the coaching staff. But if he doesn't, then 10 is going to continue to grow.
The worst 2 contracts in the NFL: Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray.
Russell Wilson's is worse than Kyler Murray's.
Ooh.
It's not worse than Watson's because Watson's might be the worst of all time.
Yeah, you're right.
Russ, I think Russ is worse than
I'm going to have to yield to you. Yeah, you got that one right. You got that better than me.
Let's go to Green Bay and the Rams. Speaking of more questions at quarterback here, my goodness. So Matthew Stafford hasn't practiced all week with that right thumb injury. Also, Puka Nacua hasn't practiced all week either with a knee. So Rams could be down 2 key players, the quarterback and I know Cooper Kupp's there, but Nakua's been better this year so far for the Rams. If it's not Stafford, it's Brett Rippon, who we saw come in relief last week in Dallas. We saw him start a game last year in Denver. Chris, you opened 1.5 before we knew what the status was of Stafford. You readjusted to 3. Got as high as 3.5 on the pack. Now it's sitting at 3 right now with a total of 38.5. Green Bay has not played well, though, over the last 6 weeks.
Well, again, first game maybe without the starter. Brett Rippon, not bad. Not a horrible quarterback.
Fine backup.
Yeah, he's okay. I think the 3.5 to me is just too high. We are at 3 now, but it's one of those togglers. It's going to go back and forth between 3 and 3.5. The 3s that I do see out there are with some reasonably high juice 20s, and I see 19. I see 3.5 with juice on the dog. But I think to me, I would play the Rams or pass here. There's no way I could lay points up with Green Bay right now.
If you get 3.5, yeah. This is a game where folks are going to really watch and wait and see how the actives and inactives come out. So then it'll be a flurry.
I'm a little concerned about Green Bay. That was as good of a spot as you possibly could have drawn up last week. And they looked awful in that game against Minnesota. After not showing up really in Denver, losing a close game to the Raiders, we'll get to them a little bit later, and getting crushed by Detroit. If it wasn't for that miracle comeback against New Orleans, we're talking about the Packers being in the hey, they're worse than the Bears category. Like that, we're talking about it would be 1-6 if it wasn't for that miraculous comeback. Yeah. So there are a lot of problems with the Packers, and it all starts with Jordan Love just not being up to the task right now through the first 7 games.
Listen, this is what, 4th year?
Year 4.
3rd year. Yeah,
year 4.
4th year. Listen, I know he sat on the bench, but he should be better than this.
Yeah,
if he's going to be the guy, he should be better than this. I think to me, again, like I said, I would have to, I'd have to take the dog or pass. That's what it would have to be.
I think we're in agreement on that one. I didn't bother with it. I'm with what Vinny said is important. I want to see the inactives. I want to see if Stafford can go. I imagine even if it's a banged-up Stafford, this will go below 3.
If Stafford and Nakua are going to play in this game,
go back to the 1.5.
You may get back down to the opener.
Yeah, I expect Nakua to be there. Stafford, not so much. But with a thumb injury in his throwing hand, that's a lot to ask on a short week. All right, let's go to Houston and Tampa. Actually, if I told you at the beginning of the year that Tampa and Houston would actually be a pretty good football game, I think you would have laughed at me. But this is a perfectly solid game. It's also been a toggler here, Chris.
Yeah, it has.
You're at 2.5 right now. Houston favored at home. Open 2, got up to 3, now back to 2.5. And I'm a little surprised that people have bet this game over from 39 to 40.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
I'm a little surprised by that.
Surprised now that you mentioned it too. Yeah. I think right now, to me, 2 of the big stories in the NFL were how good a coach DeMarco Ryans is.
He's been great.
And how quickly C.J. Stroud has, become a pretty darn good quarterback. Don't expect much out of these rookies, even though we're throwing them into the fire right away. I liked C.J. Stroud coming out of college. I thought that he was the better choice over Young. A lot of people laughed at me, said I was wrong. But right now it looks like so far so good for C.J. Stroud. And this is a team I think on the rise. I think the future for these guys is good. Now, does that mean they're going to win this week? I don't know. I think I would probably take 3 if it went to 3 because I think Tampa's just kind of a gutty team. Always kind of rooted for Mayfield too. I think has had a lot of things go against some people not believing him, but I think he's a gutty little quarterback, and I think they keep this one close.
Veterans against up-and-comers right here. That's what you have. You got a pretty veteran-laden team in the Bucs, but I think it's going to continue, to Chrissy's point, to go back and forth between 2.5 and 3. So 2-way, and just no 3. Texans. Yes, the Texans are the favorite.
Tampa has lost 3 in a row after their bye week. Granted, the competition has gotten a little bit better. Losses to Detroit and Buffalo mixed in. That really ridiculous game against Atlanta a few weeks ago that they lost as well. If you made me bet it, I guess at 2.5 you would just lay the favorite. But I don't. Don't take that as gospel, folks.
Yeah, my power ratings was 1.
Okay.
Texas 1.
Yeah.
Or Texans.
Yeah, Texans have been Texans. Other than that home opener against Indy, where they got clocked when Richardson was playing. Richardson had those 2 opening drive touchdowns before going out of the game with a concussion. Houston's been pretty good at home, other than that opener against Indianapolis, smoking the Steelers, and of course beating New Orleans as well. They're I don't even know what they call that place anymore. It used to be NRG Stadium. I don't think it is anymore.
The one game the Steelers couldn't adjust in the second half.
The game was a beatdown.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Both halves.
Let's go to this next one here. Washington, who traded both Montez Sweat and Chase Young this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why the Bears insist on trading second-round picks, but here we are. Washington, Chris, is a 3-point underdog in Foxborough this week against the Patriots, who have been better the last 2 weeks. I know they didn't cover against Miami last week, but it was I think it was more competitive than the 14-point final score that it ended up being. You opened 2.5. You got as high as 3.5. You're sitting at 3 right now. Commanders getting the points in Foxborough against the Pats.
Well, sometimes, I do open the 2.5 because I know if I open a 3 when there's 2.5s out there, it's just an automatic.
Right.
That was the market when I opened it. So they laid me a 2.5, laid me a 3. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I like the Patriots in this game.
Okay.
My numbers come to 3.5. And that's obviously a really big half point. I don't know what Washington's doing right now. To me, I mean, if I was Rivera, you're fighting for your job. I think everybody on that staff is fighting for their job. You trade a couple guys like that. What's the signal that you're telling the rest of your team? I don't know. I think this is a really good spot for New England. I think 3.5 was a better number. That's what my power ratings come to. Had I opened it in a vacuum, that is what I would have opened. But, the market kind of dictated at the time that I've opened the 2.5. But I'd like New England in this spot.
I don't think it was Rivera's idea.
I don't think it was either.
I would agree with you on that.
You have new ownership here that is clearly indicated they're going in a different direction. And I think that direction, unfortunately, is going to involve him too. And so he's got to do his job and try to convince everybody to step up and do what they need to do. But this year, I can tell you this: we're gonna need Washington in this game, because this will be one of the games, especially even though they're not performing to Patriot standards, but this is a game that the Patriots are going to draw plenty of attention, in my opinion.
Sam Howell, I actually think, has looked a lot better than I would have expected him to so far this year. Now, he still holds the ball too long. I think it's more that than the offensive line not being good. I think he just holds the ball too long. That's why he's on pace to get sacked more than David Carr did in that first year of the Houston Texans. I have no idea what I'm getting out of New England on a weekly basis, which is very weird to say based off of, again, obviously Brady hasn't been there in 3 years now, but with that coach, you usually know what you're getting. I have no clue what I'm getting out of New England on a weekly basis anymore. So that's part of the reason I stayed out of this, especially at 3. But neither of these teams are really any good. These are both bottom half NFL teams. At this point.
I can tell you why you don't know what you're getting at, because there's no talent on it.
Well, it's also, and they're injured on top of it.
Yeah.
Well, he's also the GM.
Yes.
There you go.
Commanders right now 3-point dogs on the road in Foxborough against the Patriots. A total 40.5 on that one. All right. Last of the 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific games. New Orleans taking on Tyson Bagent yet again for the Chicago Bears. Field still not ready yet with that dislocated thumb. Chris, you opened 7, and the bettors have taken you to 8.5 on this one with New Orleans. Total hasn't moved the whole week, stuck at 41.
My power ratings come to 8.
Okay.
They laid me 7 and 7.5. I just skipped over 8. I went straight to 8.5. I don't know what's going to happen here. Tyler Bagent, he looks pretty good, for a rookie quarterback coming from Division II. Seems like a pretty good story. Do I want my money on him? Not necessarily. But, I don't know. I guess, like I said, my numbers came to 8. I'm not too crazy about either side here on this particular game.
Has New Orleans righted things, Jeff? I mean,
have they?
I mean, that's the question,
That's a
right?
great question.
Look, and I think this is a question. This is a game where they can answer it, even though it's against the Bears, because this is what they're supposed to do, right? So, again, we look at it. It's Week 9. Going into the season, they were the favorites in the division for a variety of reasons. One of them was the quarterback position. So, protect the ball, value the ball, and take care of business. They're going to have that opportunity to do it here. So we should get another answer of yet continuous questions all year about the Saints.
I don't know if beating Indianapolis is righting the ship. The Colts' defense is awful. They're the only team in the NFL this year.
It is, but they've still overachieved, right? Compared to what we thought they would.
100%, Vinny. I thought Indy was going to be
thought to be the bottom team in that division.
I thought they were going to be lucky to get to 7, and Indy probably will get to 7 wins. But man, if you're New Orleans, you're tied with the Falcons in that division. You see them twice later in the season.
And you mentioned that they blew that game against the Packers.
And totally blew that game against Green Bay. Still can't. I know it was a month ago already, but Derek Carr throwing 4 straight Hail Marys from the 30-yard line against Houston was still one of the more bizarre sequences we've seen all year as well in a touchdown game. But if you are any good at all, and we kind of saw this with the Chargers last week, where I'm sure there are plenty of people who thought, man, I really don't want to take the Chargers in Survivor. And you know what? You didn't have to sweat one bit last Sunday night.
That's true.
Against the Bears. Not even a beat of sweat in that game. It's kind of the same feeling this week for everyone that's going to have New Orleans in Survivor. You know what they should do against Tyson Bagent is make him look like a kid who was playing at Shepherd College last year. And instead, it wouldn't shock me if this is, all right, New Orleans, you're going to have to get a stop at the end of the game leading by 6 with Chicago having the ball. So on the spread, I didn't bet this game. Survivor players are going to play New Orleans in a big way this week, though, against the Bears.
Them and the Browns.
Yeah. Those will be the top 2 in some order.
Mm-hmm.
See how it goes for that one. All right, to the later games. Let's, before we get to the game that's in town, which is the one I'm looking forward to for a lot of reasons, but we'll get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
As Allegiant turns.
Okay.
Indianapolis and Carolina. Hey, the Frank Reich revenge game here.
Okay.
For Carolina and Indianapolis. I like how you said that there, Chris. You open 3 with Indy on the road. It's down to 2.5. 45-44. Carolina's no longer winless. They finally got that first win last week against Houston.
And you had them on the money line.
I did.
Attaboy. Good job.
Hey, get one right every once in a while, Vinny. But I crossed this one out immediately, especially at the 2.5 with Indy.
Yeah, my power ratings come to 2.5.
Yeah.
I was at 3 for a while. Again, just got to go with the market at some point. Because, these 2.5, 3 games, you can't believe how much business I get on these, Jeff. And it's funny. I remember years ago I was doing a radio show with Roxy, and the guy, says, well, the number doesn't really matter, in X amount of games in the NFL. Just pick the winner. And Roxy looked at me and goes, go from 2.5 to 3 on the point spread and see what happens. And that's the case here. So I don't want to hear all that crap because I know it's true, but I also know what I see on a weekly basis. Go from 2.5 to 3 and see what kind of action you create. And that's what happened in this game. So right now, I got more action on the Panthers, so I'm going to need the Colts at this point. I mean, that may change because I think this game has a pretty good chance of getting back to the 3.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think I could see it getting back up. I mean, they got their win last week. Somebody's got to be favored. So it happens to be the road team in this case.
Yeah, this is a very difficult game to handicap. Bryce Young was better last week.
Yeah.
And for Indy, I mean, look, it's pretty simple at this point. They're the only team in the NFL to score 20 points or more in every single one of their games so far this year, and they're 3-5. It just kind of shows you what type of defense
they're the anti-Steelers.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. What type of defense they're trotting out every single week. I mean, they gave 38 to New Orleans and 39 to P.J. Walker. Both of those things are pretty hard to do. That Indy has done it in back-to-back weeks in that one. Again, 2.5 on the road. The Colts favored against Carolina. All right. Some would argue that Dallas and Philadelphia is the main event. We'll get to that game in a minute. The Giants are on the road here in Vegas against the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders, in the dark of the night, on Halloween night, fire Dave Ziegler, the GM, fire Josh McDaniels, their head coach. They also fire their offensive coordinator, Mick Lombardi, as well, in the middle of the week. And Antonio Pierce comes in. He's the interim. No, really not much coaching experience.
No.
Arguably, to some, has less coaching experience than Jeff Saturday did. Granted, Pierce has been around an NFL team this year, unlike Saturday a year ago. And Jimmy Garoppolo's benched also.
Yeah, that was one more key to the
so
puzzle.
Aiden O'Connell's going to start, and they're still favored against the New York Giants, who get their starting quarterback back this week at Daniel Jones. Chris, I'm not even going to bother bringing up the opening number because it's a totally different game with what it looked like at the beginning of the week. You're sitting at 1.5, Vegas favored, 37.5 the total for this monstrosity of a football game just due north of us.
They are playing the Giants.
They are.
Let's keep that in mind. And I think somebody said something about Derek Carr, and I think he said this very privately, not publicly. But when he got let go by the Raiders, and he's not a great quarterback, but the first thing he says, who are you going to replace me with? And they went with Jimmy Garoppolo, signed him to a multi-million-dollar contract. Was that a better option than Derek Carr? And I don't see it, and that obviously doesn't look like that was the case. I don't know. This is going to be a horrible game to watch, and I guess if you have a bet on this game and you have the winner, you'll love it. But other than that, aesthetically, it's not one that we want to really put much time and effort into.
Leonard Williams gone. Their
Yep.
best pass rusher for the Giants. Jones coming back. I will tell you this. I see a spirited effort out of the Raiders here for this reason. You've got a coach who was a player. I think there's a better rapport. There was a complete disconnect between head coach and personnel. And when the owner calls a meeting and goes out to dinner with the skill position players that are high-profile players, and the coach is not there, not a good sign.
Were they here at Michael's, by the way?
I don't.
Because,
I know.
They might have been.
Mark Davis comes
he's
a
here
couple
a lot.
times a week.
He's here a lot.
He's here a couple times a week.
So I think now there'll be plenty of Giant fans in attendance, as we know.
Yep.
But I will tell you now, look for the Raiders. I think you'll see a little bit more out of them from a enthusiasm standpoint.
I had some Raider friends who were so happy that they got rid of McDaniel.
Oh,
I mean, just elated. It
is obvious from watching McDaniels that he had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
And look, the evidence was there last year. I'm a little surprised that he got the second year. I know Davis paying him a ton of money and wanted to at least, and it's probably what even got him to this past week was the amount of money he was paying McDaniels. I mean, just look at what they did last year. They blew the 20-point lead in the first home game of the year against Arizona. Yeah. They lost to Jeff Saturday. They were the only ones to do that. They blew the game to Baker Mayfield on 36 hours in the facility with the Rams. And I didn't even mention the game they blew on a Monday night against Kansas City. They were up by 20 points.
Right.
And that's the fourth worst loss of the entire season, which is just telling you something. And in this year, they were the only team to score less than 21 or less in every single game. All their quarterbacks have more interceptions than touchdowns still this year. And Devontae Adams, I'll be honest with you, Devontae Adams, it looked like his head was going to explode by the end of that game in Detroit.
Right? Yeah. So I think the Giants' offensive line may be a little bit healthier, Jeff. I think
same as last week.
Which was healthier than a couple of weeks ago. But Jones is a different dynamic for them as well under center.
That's better than Tommy DeVito. He can complete a forward pass.
I mean,
what were his numbers last week?
Tommy DeVito threw for -1 yard. Chris.
-1 yard. There you go. Well, like I said, he was a better singer with the Four Seasons.
Very good.
Oh, I get it. You're laughing, but the Steelers were looking to sign him.
So I'm not betting. I'm not betting this game. Actually, that's not true. I took 3 earlier in the week with the Giants early.
Okay.
Now I don't want to take the take back on the Raiders. The only thing that concerns me here is these teams usually do get a bump when the interim coach comes in.
Yeah, they do.
And with the amount that it's fairly obvious, even with what hasn't been said yet, that those star players on the Raider offense just could not stand McDaniels by the end. There is something to that bump this week where it may just be a one-game bump where the Raiders look great this week and then they go back to being the team they were the whole rest of the year after this. That is the one concern I have with that +3 I have earlier in the week.
Be better than Jeff Saturday got a half.
Jeff Saturday won his first game, and then
the second game he had the 30-point lead at the half.
No, that was later on.
Oh, later on. Okay.
Yes, the 33-0 game that I had Minnesota money line in that game at 20-0.
Whoa.
I wish I had come back at 33-0.
Whoa.
Given Chris brought up a good point about factual. I mean, about the Raider fans and the ones he's spoken to and we've heard. One thing about the Raiders, they've been bet all year except one game. Right, Chris? I mean, think about it. I mean, there has been a lot of Raider support at the betting counter, and I think there'll be plenty of Raider support in this game.
Raiders 1.5 at home against the Giants. What a football game it is, just due north of us here at Allegiant Stadium. All right, now to something a little bit better, guys. Philadelphia hosting Dallas. This week, it's such a weird week in the NFL where you see games like the Raiders-Giants game, the Colts and Panthers game. But then you have just these 3 mega games where we already discussed the Germany game with Miami and Kansas City. And then these next 2 that we're going to get to are just mega football games. And Dallas and Philadelphia is one of them. And Chris, it's funny because you look at the way this game has been bet this week. You haven't moved the whole week.
No, but I got action here, though.
You open Philly 3, you open 46.5, and I'm going to say this has been a great 2-way game for you.
Oh, yeah, this has been fantastic. I wish I could do this every game. Just a lot of play, a lot of interest, a lot of parlays, a lot of teasers, a lot of everything. You know what? This is going to be the game of the afternoon. We're going to have the game of the morning early, the 10 o'clocks. Okay. But this one is going to be a hell of a game, and I can't wait to watch this one. I really, I'm in a contest where you have to pick every game, and I don't know which way I'm going with this. I'm probably going to take the 3, but I think this is just a really, really close game, and it should be a terrific game.
Great betting game, great booking game. Great betting games make for great booking. I mean, the question is, who does this game mean more to? Probably the Cowboys, especially because of all the hype going into the San Francisco Dallas game. Eagles with a very comfortable, I would say, they're in a comfortable spot now, and the winner, if they win this game, it's like a 2-game swing.
It's a 2.5 game lead in the division with a win.
Eagles, don't you still get the sense that even given their terrific record, they're still trying to find their groove, right? Again, 2 new coordinators. This is the week where that all has to come into, it's got to be clicking right now.
And they are healthy too.
Great point, because the last couple of games were the healthiest they've been since even week 1. Cowboys, they need to, if they're going to legitimately contend, then this is a huge game.
I would say it's a bigger game for Dallas.
Yeah.
Just because if you win this game, actually Dallas would, even though Philly would have technically a half-game lead because they have an extra win, Dallas would control the NFC East with the second game between these teams in their building. The other flip side of that is if Philadelphia wins this game, they're 8-1. It's even with that just obscene stretch they have coming up. Here's Philadelphia. Let's have some fun with some schedules real quick, including Sunday against Dallas. Here's what Philly has after that. They have a bye week next week. All right, rest up because it's at Kansas City, Buffalo, the 49ers, at Dallas, at Seattle. As
they could lose every one of those.
Yes, as ridiculous of a stretch
really
as you're ever going to see. By the way, their last 3 games, it gets a little softer. 2 against the Giants and the Cardinals at home. So the win those last 3 if they need them. But boy, that stretch that starts in this game is beyond insane for Philadelphia.
What's the Cowboys? comparable.
It's not that. I can tell you that, Vinny.
I mean, they had it on.
It's Dallas again. Yeah, okay. There's a big difference in this. The next few games after this, they get the Giants next week at home. They're going to win that game more likely than not. They go to Carolina, and then it's Thanksgiving against Washington. They're going to be favored in all three of those games. Yes. They will play Seattle after that in Arlington. That is a Thursday night game where both teams are playing Thanksgiving, so it's a regular rest Thursday game for both of them. And then the big stretch comes after that. Philly, at Buffalo, at Miami, Detroit.
Wow.
So
okay, that's a tough 3-game stretch. That 5-game
stretch starting with Seattle is very difficult for Dallas as well. So, hey, look, the NFC East schedule, we talked about it at the beginning of the year.
Monster.
Very, very, very difficult because of the crossovers this year. So we will see on this one. I think I am going to end up on Philadelphia in this one. I just think they're the better team. They have the better coaching staff, even though they're still trying to find it with those new coordinators. And Dak's got to show me in one of these big games at some point. Go on the road and beat a really good team.
Okay, let me get out my crystal ball here.
Please.
This is the kind of game Dallas will win in November.
They won't win it in January.
And won't win in January.
You know what? I can't really argue with that if you feel that way.
I got a lot of flack a couple weeks ago. I said, Dallas, the best team every June for 26 years in a row.
No, make it 27 next year, Chris.
Might be.
Now let's go to the AFC side. Big, really good game in Cincy here. Yeah. The Bengals have figured it out. The Bengals are over 500, and we've brought it up on this show plenty of times. I'll say it one more time. The league is going to rue the fact that they let Cincinnati live at the beginning of the year. And the Bengals are 4-3, and they get Buffalo here. Chris, they're 2-point favorites, the Bengals are. You opened 1.5, got as high as 3.
I know, yeah.
Back to 2. Total's been bet big time over 47.5 to 50.5. Josh Allen removed from the injury report earlier today, so that's good news for the Bills. But, Chris, the playoff game a year ago, Cincinnati went to Western New York, and that game was never competitive. Cincinnati ran them out of the building from the get-go. I know there were some on the Bills who were no longer there that said, if it wasn't snowing, it would have been an even game. Okay, no, you got destroyed in your own building. It doesn't matter what the weather was. I just think this is a bad matchup for Buffalo, more so than anything. I just don't think they match up well with this Cincinnati team.
My power ratings come to Cincy 1.5.
Okay.
We got up. So I opened 2, I think.
You're back at the opener.
Mm-hmm. We got up at the 3. So we were at 3 on Tuesday and Wednesday morning when I put out my parlay cards. Ty's win card at 3.
Oof.
I'm sweating that because I got to tell you, I don't really like, but I'm going to need Cincinnati to cover 3.5.
Okay.
Because Ty's win 3. I mean, you're taking 3.5. And I'm going to have a lot of guys going to that Sunday night game. A lot of them. So I'm going to need Cincy pretty good. And I know you like Cincy.
I do.
And I hope you're right, is all I could tell you. I don't have a strong opinion on the game, but I definitely am going to need Cincy come Sunday night.
Great betting game again. We got some really good matchups here, and everything's going to it. So that's going to certainly, as it always does, impact the number, right, where this number is going to wind up after the 125 Pacific games. And how things are heading into it, right? So, look, I think who's healthier too? Probably Cincinnati getting healthier now. Still, you talk about the trade deadline too. I thought that the Bills, we thought that Kansas City would go after a receiver. Thought the Bills would get a little bit more involved on the defensive side of things. Especially with Washington doing what they did. And maybe they were. Maybe there were some conversations.
It's going to be hard to beat a second-round pick for Montez Sweat.
But when you think about Montez Sweat going to the Bears, oh, and by the way, Chase Young going to the 49ers, where the rich get richer. I don't know. It's a little perplexing.
They did trade for Rasul Douglas from Green Bay. Helps their secondary out. Elam went on IR, even though, granted, Elam had not been playing at any sort of NFL level the last few weeks for Buffalo. Again, Vinny, we've talked about this with the Buffalo injuries on the defense. They're not the same unit.
No.
And I always thought that they were a very good defense that really destroyed the minnows. They destroyed the bad teams, And then when they faced the good teams, they were still good, but they were not the same defense as they were against the bottom feeders of the league.
Well, they were I thought they were real good against the Dolphins, right? I mean, they were healthy too. That's when they
were
started
healthy at that point.
That's when they started.
Yep.
The injuries started in the second half of that game. But it's so. But this one, we'll see how things are going into it, because that's certainly going to impact how this number moves.
The Bengals are my strongest play of the week.
I know you've liked them all week, and I'll be rooting for you Sunday night.
I hope I'm right.
Yeah, I do too.
And the way you're talking, you hope I'm right.
I definitely hope you're right.
Again, it's just something about letting a team that's kind of toiling around and not playing well. You let them hang around, and boom, even with that difficult schedule that Cincinnati has, could be looking at the Bengals being 10-4 when they play Kansas City on New Year's Eve. Be like, wow, how did that happen that the Bengals are playing for a top 2 seed in the AFC?
And of course, the most, I mentioned that they're healthier.
Burrow's healthier. That's the biggest,
and that's the biggest. That's the biggest improvement.
Yeah, Burrow looked like himself last week.
He did.
That play he made early in the game where he got away from the sack 4 different times. That was a statement play you remember in a season for Cincinnati. Bengals 2-point favorites at home against Buffalo. All right, one last NFL game. Winning ugly is what the New York Jets have been doing the last few weeks. An escape job last week against the Giants, to put it politely. They take on the Chargers. Chargers traveling cross country in this one. Open 3, now 3.5. Totals down from 41.5 to 40 on this one.
I like the Jets. I think his number's too high. Yeah. And this would be, I'd say, the fourth game of, I said that we got 3 great games. This is the fourth in that lineup. I think it's a pretty good game. But I think the Jets show up here, and I think that defense is good. And boy, the Charger team, I'm just tired of being disappointed in them all the time. They underachieve. The Jets overachieve. Now you're getting 3.5 at home. I mean, to me, I made this game pick 'em. I like the Chargers quite a bit here. I opened the game 3. They laid it to me. Come Monday, I hope I still need the Jets.
Defense doesn't have to travel, right?
No.
Chargers defense doesn't scare anybody. The question, but we know that the Chargers can score, but they're going to go up against a defense that's really kept the Jets in contention now. So, I think the biggest thing with the Jets is this is where coaching comes into play. This is what I look for. You always want to be something. You want to have a certain culture. You want to have a certain style. You have to have the players to have that style. But as coaches, you've also got to coach what you have, and don't overcomplicate. I've not seen adjustments here. I see this a similar situation with the Jets as I do with the Steelers offensively. You have two good defenses, but think about it, right, Chris? I mean, you've got 2 quarterbacks that don't have the skill set that you would like them to have. So keep it simple. Don't over. Try to build on their strengths if they have strengths. Of course, they obviously have to have strengths because they've gotten drafted. They're at this NFL level. So that's the thing that's the big question mark with the Jets. But now, given the number at 3.5, it's to Chris's point to take.
It's already in the count at 3.5. I'm a little surprised. Just when I was going through, I still follow Gil and will do guesses as well before these numbers come out. I made this game Chargers 1.
Yeah, well, I made it pick 'em.
And there's really 1 and a pick. We're splitting hairs on that.
My number comes to pick to the Jets at home, 2-point favorite.
Yeah, it's one of those where the Chargers pass defense is awful. We know what Zach Wilson is at this point. And Vinny, you brought up coaching. With watching the Jets, whenever Zach Wilson doesn't have to think, he actually looks like an okay quarterback at times. when he has to think, that's when it gets in trouble.
Scary.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like you see the gears turning as the game is going. But again, the Chargers are over a field goal on the road against anyone is something that I would never do. Not to say the Chargers won't win the game by 10.
They could.
But, over a field goal with the Chargers on the road against anyone is a really tough one to put in the account.
Well, kind of what Vinny said. I made a joke about it. He compared them to the Steelers, but it's kind of true. They know what they have to do to win the game. And like I said, it ain't a beauty contest. It's a football game. And they can win ugly games. And I think they're going to win this one. By the way, before we pass on last night's game.
Yes.
Will Levis is pretty good.
Will Levis is very entertaining because that last drive he was kind of just chucking it aimlessly, and it kind of worked.
I know. But for a second-round draft choice, I'm watching the game, and I'm thinking, I was texting my buddies back in Pittsburgh. We're all sweating the game, texting each other. Their quarterback's better than our quarterback. It's kind of what we were saying.
There's no fear. There's no fear with Will Levis. And it'll be interesting to see how Tennessee goes the rest of the year with him at quarterback. All I can tell you is I know injuries played a role early in the year with Levis, but the fact that he didn't come back immediately and wasn't ahead of Malik Willis is kind of befuddling to me.
Well, who knows?
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, he was dealing with injuries the first. Yeah. He had an injury that kept him out the first month. So it'll be an interesting team to bet on and look at how they're treated in the market, Tennessee, the rest of the year with him at quarterback as opposed to the others. All right. Those are our 2 hours. Fellas, you can go back to work now.
Go back to work. I'm going to go back to sweating this horse. I got the 4-horse coming up.
The 4-horse in the...
It's a little chalky, but,
All 3 Baffert horses are 5-2.
Oh, there we go. Breeders' Cup special. If you want help handicapping the Breeders' Cup, available now on our YouTube page. Ralph Sirocco and company yesterday. John Lindo, Dwayne Colucci stopped by.
Yeah. Well, they went over today's races. We got a couple left, but then they're having a seminar tonight to go over Saturday's races. And we got party upstairs. We got it now. We got it up. Tomorrow is really going to be crazy.
Big, the classic, of course, coming tomorrow. For Vinny Magliulo, for Chris Andrews, shout out to the crew. Ryan, Jerry, Sean, and doing a great job as always. I'm Jeff Parles. Back tomorrow, 8 in the morning, myself and Alex White. Get you ready for college football here on Sports by the Book.